Marvel Studios is very aware of what's going on in the fandom, and sometimes they speak to those fans in an unapologetic way. Remember the post-credit scene from Homecoming where you waited as a fan for 10 minutes for the credit just to get a speech that sometimes patience will not be rewarded? Yeah, that was Marvel Studios trolling the fans, and this week they actually trolled the trolls when they used the actual complaints from the MCU crowd in their own show to show how ridiculous those statements actually are. Well played, Marvel. Well played. Hello and welcome to the review of Champion. It's time to talk about She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Episode 3, The People versus Emile Blonsky. Well, with me are a small but sweet crowd. Merv.
Hello.
And Taylor.
Hey.
Before we start, I would like to ask you all to hit that like and subscribe button and maybe join our forum on Scar, scar.freeforums.net. It's a nice community, nice fans. We would love it if you join and talk to us. And if you want, you can be on the show as well. We're going to talk spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, go check it out first and then come back to the video. Well, Taylor, I got a little bit annoyed by the fourth wall breaking in this episode. It was like 3 or 4 times even in a 30-minute episode. I like it when they do it sometimes, but it got a little bit too much for me. Am I just nagging?
I didn't have a problem with the fourth wall breaking in this episode. I didn't really notice that it was more than the previous episodes. Maybe it was a couple more, but I didn't have an issue with it.
Okay. Did you like the episode this week?
Yes. Overall, I liked the episode quite a bit. I'm not 100% sure what they're doing with this show. Mm-hmm. We were told in no uncertain terms by Kevin Feige that this is a sitcom.
Yeah.
Some of the fans refuse to accept that. If you look at some of the discussions online, it seems a lot of people have forgotten that Feige said this is a sitcom. The question is what kind of sitcom? And of course, there's many different kinds. Most sitcoms are, one episode contained stories, and this episode was kind of like that, sort of. I mean, the story started in the previous episode with Blonsky, mm-hmm. But this episode had much more of a beginning, a middle, and an end than the previous episodes. Now, of course, it's not unusual for sitcoms to have multi-episode story arcs. Going way back, even the Beverly Hillbillies would often have multi-episode story arcs. So there's no rules about how sitcoms have to go about it. Where I'm not quite there yet is I haven't laughed very much at this particular sitcom. Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying the show overall.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not going for belly laughs. Maybe it's going for the more subtle humor, and and there's a lot of humor in it. That's fine. It's entertaining. But I haven't, seen it as a broad comedy at this point.
Mm. Yeah. As I said in my opening statement, Marvel actually made a comment about the MCU crowd, and to my surprise, I actually saw that there was little comment anymore about feminism and stuff like that. But now they started to complain it is too comedic and too less of a law show. The show is called She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I agree. Is it too comedic and too little of a law show? Because actually you said you didn't love that much, so
No, I don't think it's too comedic by any means at this point. Again, it's supposed to be a comedy. I don't know why people don't believe Kevin Feige when he says that it's a comedy. Yeah. Now, the question is, though, what does a comedy get away with? Now, the fourth wall breaking is one thing, and that's goes back to She-Hulk in the comics, and there's no issue with that. But are they going to be allowed to, bend the canon quite a bit just for the sake of for humor? I don't know. Maybe we can discuss it if we've seen any of that yet. But there's certainly not too much law stuff. I mean, this week was really the first time we saw any courtroom and hearing for the parole hearing stuff at all. So how is there too much? It's only been in one episode so far.
Yeah. I think people are just complaining because they want to complain. They want to justify that review bomb they probably took part in. Merv, they came in like a wrecking crew. I saw your comments on the board. If you want to know what I'm talking about, sign up on our board and check the conversation out on She-Hulk. I saw online, I'm not familiar with the comics, that they are connected to the Punisher. Hey, we get Daredevil in this show. Do we get the Punisher as well?
We might. That's like one of those kind of like Deadpool characters where you can get away with a lot of not R-rated stuff with Daredevil and other characters, but with Punisher, it's kind of hard. Like to capture that character and not be messy, and definitely not geared towards children. I mean, I don't know how you would do a Punisher properly and have him be accepted by a general audience. It would have to be very mature, in my opinion. And if you want to, if you think this backlash was bad, try doing like a G-rated Punisher, and I would even be upset at that. I can't even imagine what that would be, but yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see him. I don't know. So like the Wrecking Crew is, kind of a low-level group in comics. They're kind of like the Brooklyn Brawler of the MCU. They're always around, but they never really matter a whole lot. And I have like a real big soft spot for characters like that are just kind of like working class villains. You know what I mean? I don't like they don't really have that many high hopes. They're just like, hey, what's our next big score? And it usually fails, like every time, But then they'll get out of prison again, and then they'll try it again, and they get beat up by some other hero. So, their depiction in the show wasn't spot on comic book wise, but I'm okay with it because I never expected to see them in anything ever. Honestly, like of all the characters to see down the line, I never expected the Wrecking Crew to make an appearance in anything outside of like cartoon shows and stuff like that. So I was excited to see them just for the sheer fact that they showed up, like that was it.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the episode this week?
I did. But I will say that especially on a rewatch and stuff like that, this episode made me wonder if I'm not I didn't get the Megan Thee Stallion reference at all. I don't know who that is. So all of that went right over my head. I thought it was a made-up character for the show. I'm one of those people who, just because I didn't know that name, if they would have done a million other celebrities or musicians or anything, I would have probably caught on. But I thought it was, if they would have even done fake ones like Dazzler, I would have known who that was. But I had no idea who Megan Thee Stallion was. So everything, they said her name like 46 times in the episode. I didn't keep count, so I'm just rounding up. But they kept saying her name, and I'm like, is this a real person? And by the end, whenever she shows up, I realized that it was. So that kind of made me wonder if a lot of this episode wasn't definitely I'm not the target demographic for this because I had no idea who that was. But I guess if you know who that is and you get the reference, I'm sure a lot of that stuff would have landed a lot better for me. So I was definitely kind of more middling on this one than the previous two. And I also think the court stuff that we got is very base level. It was the stuff that they mentioned with the Abomination as in the last episode where it was he has a few good points, never even factored in. He just had to show that he wasn't out of control whenever he goes in the Abomination thing, and then they put a thing on him anyway. So even that didn't matter. They put a thing on him and they're okay, you're good, go ahead. And I don't know. I just feel there's not, maybe it's the writing that isn't super high, it's very low, and so whenever you mix that with references I'm not getting, it creates a mixed feeling, I guess, whenever I watch it. I still like it, I'm still going to keep watching it, but like there's definitely a lot more stuff that didn't land for me in this one than did. But then you get the stuff like the Wrecking Crew, and like that's a reference I get, so I was elated.
Good. Taylor?
Yeah, no clue who Megan Thee Stallion is. Never heard of this person. I saw a headline in one of the trades or something, Megan Thee Stallion cast in She-Hulk. Didn't read the article because I didn't want spoilers. Figure I'll watch the episode and see who this person is. Still really don't know who this person is. Okay. Now, again, sitcoms have a long history of trying to get celebrities to be guest stars and getting celebrities to be guest stars. And sometimes they play up these celebrities to be bigger celebrities than they actually are. Okay. For example, the Brady Bunch episode where they got Desi Arnaz Jr. To guest star. I mean, he was a star at the time. I'm not sure how big of a star he was, but they made a really big deal about him on the Brady Bunch. And then there are guest stars, celebrity guest stars who may be very famous in a small niche of whatever it is they do. For example, The Odd Couple did an episode with Richard Fredericks, the opera star. Well, if you weren't a big fan of opera in the early 70s, you probably had no clue who Richard Fredericks was, but it was a huge deal to Oscar and Felix on The Odd Couple in that one episode. So again, a long history of sitcoms doing this, and I have no problem with it. Like I said, okay, I guess I got it. She's a singer. She's kind of inspired me. I'm thinking about possibly changing my name to Stanley the Walrus in the future, so that I'll be hip with the young people, apparently.
Okay. This is beyond funny. But anyway, now I actually thought it was me that I'm not an American, so I don't know who that is, and that woman is very huge in America. Well, good for her. She got a lot of attention, and I hope it will help her in her career. Merv?
I just want to point out that like the MCU has a history of making fun of superhero names. And then their big guest star is called Megan Thee Stallion, which is like a ridiculous name to,
Right.
If that was the superhero, they'd be like, oh, what, a horse? You know what I mean? Like they'd be making fun of it, but because it's a celebrity, I guess.
That's worse than She-Hulk.
It's just funny.
Okay. Of course, there was a little bit of controversy as well about the post-mid-credit scene where we saw two women enjoying themselves in the office, twerking, dancing, whatever you want to call it. And of course, a lot of people were saying, you make a big deal about not objectifying women and then they go and do that. I saw a well-balanced discussion on the board, and I actually agree with my little friend from Australia, Chalice, here, saying it's not the person who dances who's objectifying herself, but it's the person looking or whatever. But anyway, what do you guys think? Merv, you go first.
It doesn't bother me. Like it didn't do anything for me either way as far as the twerking scene goes. As far as like the hypocrisy of it, I mean, there's definitely. I wouldn't actually use that as the prop up for being a hypocrite, because like She-Hulk is, even in the first episode, like sexualized Captain America, and he wasn't even in the room. So is that the same, or as long as he's not in the room, is that okay? Like there's been this stuff since the first episode, so it doesn't really bother me either way. I will say, like, I can't remember the guy's name. The real jerky lawyer that keeps showing up, like her nemesis, basically.
Yeah, I also don't know.
Dennis
Blonsky, yeah. I think it is.
He's funny because he's so mustache twirling, like toxic traits of a man. But like, if you're gonna try to underlay like these serious things with the show, whenever you have something that cartoonish and like over the top, it kind of deflates the whole thing for me, at least. It kind of makes me go, but I don't know. It doesn't, like that. The twerking especially doesn't bother me at all. Like, I mean, there have been dance scenes in so many comic book movies now that it's always kind of cringy. You know what I mean? It doesn't make it less. Like whenever I even brought this up on the board, I think whenever the Hulk does the dab thing in Endgame, like that was kind of cringy to me, just because it's a
Star-Lord moving his
Star
pelvis around in the opening
yes.
credits.
And he, like, people forget it now, but he did get it. Like, that movie did get some heat for that. Like, it was like, well, they're making a joke of the ending, but it was, overwhelmingly positive on one side, and then there was a section that was like, this is just all a joke. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But I don't know. It doesn't bother me. If the whole episode were about it and it weren't like an end credit scene or post credit scene or whatever, then maybe it'd be different. But it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, before I go to the man who says post-credit scenes don't count anyway, I just thought it was funny because the setting, it was the office and they were doing that. And then her boss dropped by and thought like, I don't want to be here. I just thought that was really funny. I didn't read anything into it until I saw those discussions online. Yeah, to me, it was meant nothing, except it was fun. Taylor?
When I said post-credit scenes don't count, I meant that like if a person only appears in a post-credit scene and nowhere else in the product, that doesn't count as them having appeared in the movie or in the series.
I understand.
And yeah, that's pretty much, I believe that was the context of that particular conversation.
Yeah, I know, but I'd like to take things out of context and confront you with it. I mean, that's my job as a moderator. Make you feel uncomfortable and make you defend yourself. Come on.
Now, the people who say there's hypocrisy there, they have a point. I think to some degree they're right. At least from their point of view. Look at me what I'm doing in public, but don't look at me and talk about what I'm doing in public, or I'll call you're objectifying me. We see it on Instagram all the time, string bikini pictures, and then people saying, why are you commenting about her publicly posted string bikini picture? Well, because she publicly posted a string bikini picture and she didn't block comments on it, So they have a slight point. The other point though is, sex appeal, when you don't like it, it's objectifying. But when you like it, it's sex appeal in entertainment. And there's always been sex appeal in entertainment. It's always part of entertainment all the way, for men and women all the way back. I mean, every action hero from Clark Gable to Chris Hemsworth has to take their shirt off multiple times in movies. All right. It's part of entertainment because it's part of the human being, the human condition. All right, and of course it can be taken too far, and of course it can become exploitive in both ways.
Yeah,
but most of the time, like in this particular instance, I don't think it's a big enough deal to make a stink about it, go on the internet and vent your rage about it, because this is a comedy. It was a line in the first episode because they wanted to have a little gravitas and make a serious point, but the show is a comedy, and they wanted to have a stinger, mid-credit scene that was humorous. Now, a lot of the people I see online is kind of, in two things. I see some people saying it was horrible, cringy, stupid. And this is just, not even talking about the hypocrisy part, but just hated the scene, and then these are probably the same people who think this is a serious show, not a comedy. But then on the other end of the spectrum, there are people who said, I roared with laughter. I fell out of my chair. I watched it 10 times and laughed every time. I'm right smack dab in the middle. Didn't bother me a bit. Thought it was fine. Did not laugh. Did not go back and rewatch it. Didn't fall out of my chair. it just is what it was. So
I have a counterpoint.
I don't know if I'm the majority or not.
I have a counterpoint to those people who thought it was awful and stuff like that. I didn't hear them when in Iron Man 1, Tony gets up on a plane a few hours after he slept with a reporter and had some stewardesses dance around with their shirt cropped up. And actually, the extended scene shows him betting one of the stewardesses. So, I mean, I didn't hear anyone then. So shut up now, I guess.
I mean, that was in character for Tony Stark at that time, though. But according to episode 1, Jennifer Walters, that's not her character. She wants to be taken seriously as a lawyer and hear me roar stuff. So yeah, a little bit of hypocrisy. But again, it's comedy. It was amusing. I mean, I didn't find it particularly funny, but it was amusing, and it was fine with me.
Yeah, exactly, with me as well. So, overall, where do we think the show's going? I mean, there seems to be a big bad behind the wrecking crew. They were talking about the boss. They are trying to. I think they tried to steal Jennifer's blood for whatever means. So, yeah. What do we think? A bit of speculation. Who's going to be the big boss? Kingpin?
I love seeing the Wrecking Crew. Also, I agree with Merv completely. I also see a lot of people online complaining about it's not an exact copy of the Wrecking Crew from the comic that I read. We all know that all these characters have changed multiple times over the 40 years of the comics, but everyone has their image of what the Wrecking Crew is. And like Merv said, very minor characters in the comics. And we've seen this before in the MCU many, many times where they have these more street level villains appear, and sometimes they get killed fairly quickly. Crossbones and Claw and
Tracksuit Mafia.
Yes, Tracksuit Mafia and the Leaper. I can't remember the rest of his name. George St. Pierre played him. Balrock or Batrock, the Leaper. So yeah, I mean, they're part of the universe, all right? And I love that they're there and they exist. And it's not just Thanos or just Doctor Doom that's out there being a villain that's challenging these heroes. So I love that. Why didn't they had plenty of time to stick the needle in her before she changed into She-Hulk? And again, okay, we can have lazy writing for the sake of a joke. Again, is it that kind of sitcom? Let me know if it is. All right, and then I'll be fine with it. If it's that kind of, they had plenty of time because she literally forgot to turn into She-Hulk for several seconds after they attacked her. So again, for a joke, I'm good with it. As far as where we're going, who's the boss? All right, and I'm not talking about the Tony Danza sitcom. Who is the boss that they mentioned? I've seen a lot of people online, a lot of different theories. The leader, Kingpin. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of people saying, a lot of people that haven't been seen in the MCU at all yet. I'm gonna, my best guess, I'm gonna go with Power Broker. Power Broker hired them to get She-Hulk juice.
Good one. Merv.
Yeah, I mean, just only because we know that Daredevil's going to show up, my first instinct is Kingpin. And I don't know if there's like a She-Hulk level villain that would be more impactful, you know what I mean? Outside of that, like, my subtle hope is maybe a Wink to the Hood, which is a character I really enjoy, who's kind of the reverse Spider-Man that would tie together with Dormammu, the villain from the first Doctor Strange, and he's kind of the with great power comes great opportunity character. So that would be fun for me. He's also in New York, at least initially. I'm not sure if he breaks out.
Yeah, but this show is set in LA, right?
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that's also why I wonder why Daredevil show up, because he's a New York-based lawyer or character.
Oh, I guess because the Daredevil thing was from the beginning, I just constantly assumed New York, even though now that I think about the landscape, it's definitely not a New York landscape. So then I have no idea, because I don't know what Kingpin would be doing out there either. Like, I don't, who's a West Coast villain we could bring up? I don't.
Go buy a West Coast Avengers comic and find out who the villains are on the one.
Maybe something there, I'm not well versed in She-Hulk comics to know. It would be cool if it was the Power Broker or somebody else that we already know, but I'm just as interested if it was some name that I can't even think of right now that is from the comics. Like, if it was a brand new character, it would have zero impact from me. But if I recognize the character from a comic, I'm excited.
Okay. Well, let's just rate this episode. Merv, you first.
I'll give it 7 out of 10. It just the a lot of the stuff didn't land for me, but enough did that I still enjoyed it. But there was just more of a gap between like pop culture references and me, you know what I mean, in this one than the previous two. So 7 out of 10.
Okay. Taylor, they hired the same guy from Arrow who played a lawyer there, I think, or a DA, Prometheus. I forget his name, and now he's playing a lawyer in the MCU as well. I thought that was funny. What is your rating?
Before my rating, a couple other things. Stuff, because we kind of been talking about stuff we didn't like all that much. I loved, like I said, I loved the Wrecking Crew. I loved they had their Asgardian construction tools. That again, I'm assuming Power Broker might have given those weapons to them. I liked the stuff with Blonsky. I liked now they made the joke about bringing the A and B story together, and they actually did that well. And I actually kind of liked the courtroom stuff with the case with the elf. That was kind of funny, and referencing to New Asgard and all of that. So in-universe stuff. Generally in sitcoms, I don't like A and B stories. I mean, my God, it's 20 minutes. You can't fill it one story. You can't make one story to fill 20 minutes. You got to bounce back and forth between two stories. But anyway, like she said, they brought them together, and it worked out good. So I was good with all that. I love seeing She-Hulk wreck the freaking Wrecking Crew. I thought that was a great scene. Now, one little thing. Remember, I mentioned earlier about bending canon. They almost. I mean, maybe I missed something, but I think they kind of bent the show's own canon. When she first turned into She-Hulk in the first episode, she asked Bruce to give her an inhibitor. And he said, I can't. It would take years and years to make an inhibitor like I've got here. Something to that effect. But apparently you can whip one up for Blonsky just like that now. Maybe I missed something, but that seemed a little bit out of whack there. But overall, I did like the episode. So I will give it a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
I gave last week a 10 out of 10. This week's a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I went from 7 to 8, and I'm going back to 7. I enjoyed it a lot, actually. I thought it was very funny. For the first time, actually, I thought it was very funny. But yeah, it's still a little bit too vague. I mean, we're now supposed to have an idea where the show is going, and they're dropping little hints left and right. But yeah, I think we haven't have seen like half the characters that are gonna appear on the show. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm still holding back on my rating, 7. Okay, we haven't hardly talked about Emile Blonsky and the fact that he is out. So I'm gonna ask you. You guys are the review board. Are you gonna release Emile Blonsky based on the evidence? Taylor, you go first.
I would probably not release Emile Blonsky. First of all, God knows what he's going to do to those poor women, who, by the way, I'm pretty sure are not the what's the group that's coming up in the next movie that everyone thought were going to be his soulmates.
The Thunderbolts.
The Thunderbolts.
That was my idea, and I was wrong. I admit I was wrong.
The 7 women in the Greek togas are not the Thunderbolts. I'm almost completely sure, but maybe it's a lie. Maybe those women were fake, and the real soulmates are the Thunderbolts. But I mean, come on, it's a comedy. He's made a very good case of being reformed. I don't believe him for 1 second, though, having seen what he did and what kind of personality he had back in the day. I also don't understand the whole thing with Wong. I loved seeing Wong, and I thought Wong did a great job in this episode. I thought everything he said was very funny and very well done. But why did he have to go to the Fight Club to train to be the Sorcerer Supreme? When he do his training at the Shangri-La palace where he lives or whatever that place is that with all the wizards at. Why don't you go there and train with the guy? But
Kamartage.
what goes to the Kumite? Okay, maybe I don't know. That's just a small point. But I love seeing Wong in this. But I'm kind of an eyewitness to what the guy did, having seen the movie, whereas the parole board didn't actually see what this guy did and everything he did prior to leading up to his destruction of downtown New York. So with that bias, I wouldn't have let him out.
Okay. Merv?
So they did let him out, right? Like they put the stipulation as long as he doesn't change into Abomination.
Yeah, and where's the inhibitor? But I think Emile was bullshitting the parole board, and I think Wong was bullshitting that parole board, and I even think Jen Walters was bullshitting that parole board a little bit when she spoke about that inhibitor.
So there's definitely differences in the feeling I got from rewatching that Shang-Chi scene versus like what Wong's explanation is, and I don't know if it's just poor writing or a hint towards something nefarious behind the scenes. But in the Shang-Chi scene, he definitely says something like he's training Abomination to control his anger. Like that's kind of the idea. Looking back at it, like he's talking about like learning to control his punches and stuff like that. It definitely doesn't seem like he was in Shang-Chi training himself in this process. I'm sure that's a byproduct of everything, but I mean, does he really need that much more training? He's been training at this for how long now? Like, and also, yeah, like why a Kumite of all places? Like, isn't that putting the Abomination in a much bigger position to harm others than like if he would have went to Antarctica for an hour, or something like that? Like, he could go anywhere. He has a doorway to anywhere. He could have chosen any place to train with the Abomination, but he chooses like a really crowded underground club, where he could slaughter millions, or thousands, hundreds, whatever. But it's just a weird decision.
Plus, Wong is friends with every superhero in the known universe. He couldn't have trained with one of them. He had to break Blonsky out to train with.
Right. Yeah, it strikes me as odd, and I don't know if it's going to lead anywhere, like I said, or if it's just like they wanted to have this, so they wrote around it. You know what I mean? I guess we'll find out. Like if it isn't something more meaningful, then I just think it's bad writing. But if it is, then okay, good for taking that small scene from Shang-Chi and like developing it into whatever. Like Wong is secretly forming the Thunderbolts for some reason, or something.
Yeah, that's my feeling as well. There are no Avengers, and Wong needs to have assurances, something like that. So, and he can't rely on Strange. I mean, that guy is always running there, and it's really not trustworthy enough, I think. So, but we'll have to wait and see.
Did anyone notice on Wong's online profile his jobs? He's Sorcerer Supreme. Before that, he was librarian in whatever the name of that place is, and underneath that, he was Target associate in Nepal.
I did not notice that. I should have known to freeze frame it because they always put those cool little Easter eggs in there. But I do still love the artwork at the end of the scenes or the end of the episodes too. The courtroom artwork. Whoever's doing that is thumbs up to that person. That's really well done and fun to watch.
I agree. That will conclude our review for episode 3 of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, The People versus Emile Blonsky. Before we finish, I would like to ask you all to hit that subscribe button and notification bell on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, like our Facebook page, join the forum on Sakar. That way you will never miss us and we won't have to miss you. Bye.